had the video up and it disappeared on me.
Due to COVID-19, this meeting will be conducted as a Zoom meeting pursuant to the provisions of Assembly Bill 361, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act. This meeting is being live streamed on the CCTA website.
Is anyone else getting sound right now?
No, I don't have sound either.
No, but
I'm getting sound.
oh, okay.
The person who said they're getting sound, I suspect you can hear us talking, but not the video.
Yeah, we can't hear the video.
That's correct.
Christina, did you?
Like
Oh, there it is.
Guidelines printed on the meeting agenda. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Christina will now conduct roll call.
Member Anderson? Member Ballinger?
Here.
Member Bobadilla? Member Chen?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm here, Lisa
Oh,
Bobadilla.
excellent, thank you. Member
I'm
Chen?
Here.
Member Conradi?
Here.
Member Diaz?
Here.
Member Dillard? Member Greenblatt?
Here.
Member Fay?
Nancy Wine is here as an alternate for jury.
Okay, thank you. Member Kersavan?
Present.
Member Mercurio?
Here.
Member Moreno? Member Nelson? Member Ortiz? Member Parikh? Member Reeves?
Here.
Member Rawani?
Here.
Member Singh? Member Smith?
Yep, here.
Member Wang? Vice Chair Stamps
Here.
and Chair Wells.
Here.
Excellent. We have a quorum.
Okay, so next item on the agenda is public comment. Christina, have we received any written public comment?
No, we have not.
Is there anyone wishing to speak during public comment on an item that is not part of the agenda? If so, please raise your hand and staff or I will call upon you.
I see no hands raised.
Okay, and the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Are there any changes, comments, et cetera, from the committee?
This is Leah from WICTech. I move approval of the consent calendar.
Okay. Second,
Sure, second, Andy Smith. Are we not doing these all as one big thing at the end, though?
yes, and that is next. Due to
Okay.
the size of the technical coordinating committee, we will handle a motion and roll call vote after the last regular agenda item has been presented. So moving along, we are now moving to the regular agenda items. The first item on the agenda is an informational item presented by Stephanie Hu to provide an update on the project monitoring, upcoming obligations deadline for federal aid projects, state transportation improvement program projects, active transportation program projects, highway bridge program, highway safety improvement program, and status on projects placed on Federal Highway Administration quarterly inactive list.
Thank you, Chair Wells. As she mentioned, this is an information item. No action is needed from the committee. This is the monthly or whenever we meet the monitoring report for you all. Just giving you some update on the 2021 fiscal year 21 that just ended. All the projects have been obligated except one from Pittsburgh, which is still working out some activities with Caltrans through the deer encroachment permit process. In the summertime, we worked with the jurisdictions to come up with the fiscal year 21-22 annual obligation plan, which is also shown in the staff report on page 2 of attachment B. So these are the projects shown on the screen here, projects that are going to be delivered this fiscal year. And for these projects, the regional RFA or request for authorization deadline is December 1. And this is to ensure that these folks will get the E76 by end of January to guarantee their funding. And as you guys may be aware, after that date, the funds become first come, first serve for the entire region for programming and obligation. There's a few projects that actually got moved out to fiscal year 23, which we didn't have, but this is allowed. But the tricky thing about the 2023 programming is that there is a hard deadline. There isn't any moving out further because it is the last year of OBAG 2, as you guys may know, and OBAG 3 is around the corner next year that MTC staff is still working on. So just wanted to give you an update on that. And then I will also turn your attention to attachment E, which I just switched the screen here. These are the inactive project as of end of September. There's a slight delay with the publishing of the packet, but the list of active project is slightly shorter this time. So thank you for those who were on the list and really took care of the invoicing. Just a reminder to continue to invoice regularly to avoid being on the inactive list. And I think that's going to be more important as we work towards OBAG 3, that you want to make sure that your jurisdiction has a clean record, so to speak, in terms of inactivity for your project to not have that jeopardize any funding opportunities.
Stephanie, at what point do we as individual representatives of these agencies get to comment on some of these? Like the one I see there for the county, Contra Costa, we invoiced over a year ago, and we have a funding co-op with Caltrans for all of those funds, and we're almost on our final invoice, and this shouldn't be inactive, but we can't seem to get it off the list because we're just was kind of curious.
Yeah, Nancy, thank you. And we touch base offline. So anytime I pull these projects out so this is from the website on Caltrans website. And I normally email out to you guys if I see your projects on here. And if you do see anyone that's not right, or you think it's inaccurate, please let me know and I can work with MTC or let them know this is not correct, and also let local assistants know. And then since you talk about that, I know some of you are SPOC, so single point of contact in terms of on the MTC side, and it is a requirement to attend these quarterly local streets and roads working group. And oftentimes they do flash these tables out, and they ask questions why these projects are, especially they point to projects that have over a million of like an invoice, or like the bigger projects, because that makes up a big chunk of the pie of inactiveness for our region. So if you guys can attend, that'd be really great. And I think you can also speak on what you just said, Nancy, like, obstacles, issues, or things that you guys come up against that they may not be aware because they just look at the numbers in the table. So any context you guys can give, or if you can give them to me and I can relay it, that'd be really helpful too, just for them to better understand the process. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, am I still on? Half the time I'm off mute or on mute. Yes, that does. There's none of our projects are inactive. So I will be glad to work with you on the site on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that concludes my presentation and happy to take any more questions if there are any. I'll take down the sharing so we can see our faces.
Okay, so are there any comments from the committee? Have you received any written public comment?
No, we have not.
Okay, if anyone would like to speak from the public, please raise your hand. Don't see anyone. And the next item on the agenda is an action item presented by Matt seeking authorization to accept the draft results of the 2021 Congestion Management Program Traffic Monitoring Report.
Thank you, Ricky. Christina, can you enable screen sharing for me? It's not letting me do that. Yeah, thank you, Chair Wells. I'm here to present the draft results of the 2021 Congestion Management Program level of service monitoring. As you may remember, I think probably at our last TCC meeting, you saw the draft Congestion Management Program, our full, the full program. This is a component of that program, the biannual level of service monitoring. So as with the rest of the CMP, we are required by state legislation to monitor a network of the freeway network in the county, as well as a network of intersections. We have a network of CMP routes, and where those routes intersect, we monitor those intersections. And there's 65 of those. And we are required, like I said, to do that monitoring every 2 years. And as I mentioned, with the draft CMP, level of service, as you know, has been phased out of state law, and especially when it comes to CEQA and the analysis of transportation impacts. And so we don't know whether this will go away in the Congestion Management Program legislation. We think at one point it'll be addressed and this will get phased out, but until then we are still doing this monitoring. And we think it has benefits for just providing data for tracking traffic over time, for providing counts, especially for the bicycle and pedestrian counts we collect. We aren't required to do that, but since we're out collecting data, we collect bike and pedestrian data at all 65 intersections. And then we can share all of the count and synchro sheets with local staff. And there are some potential ramifications from the monitoring, and that's if your intersections in your jurisdiction become below their standard, and after some analysis, if you can't prove that you can eliminate certain types of traffic, and if you can't do that and still be at your threshold, you may have to do a deficiency plan. We've never had to do one in this county, so we'd like to maintain that. But luckily in 2021, as you'll see in a minute, all our results improved. As you might not be surprised to hear that during a pandemic, but our level of service results improved. So,
excuse me, Matt, are you sharing screen? Are you sharing?
No, not yet. Sorry, I'm just rambling as a very long introduction. Sorry, guys. I will start sharing my screen now. Unless you want me to ramble longer, I'm sure you don't. Can you see the presentation or the notes? Better here or here?
We don't see anything.
You don't see anything?
Yeah, this is definitely, yeah, I don't, are you sharing? I don't, it didn't.
Let me try it again.
There you go. Something's happening. There you go. Works now.
Okay, so I'll get into the results now. Let me advance here. Okay, so we'll start with the freeway results. And we obtained this data through, well, here's a look at the network. So all the freeways in Contra Costa County, that's I-80, 580, 680, 242, and 24, and 160. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave our mile and a half of 160 out of the discussion. And then those 65 intersections around the area. So for the freeways, we use INRIX data. INRIX is a big data provider that tracks, uses data to track vehicles and devices in lots of different ways. It tracks vehicle fleets, it tracks apps, things like that. That basically, when you see traffic on the news, it's probably where it's coming from. So this is, and we get it from MTC to use in these reports. This is our 2021 AM peak period results. It's color coded. Green, dark green is level of service A, which basically means free flow speeds during the peak in AM. And as you can see, we don't have any of the red LOSF. It's on the legend, but it's not on the map. We do have some locations of LOSE, and that's on 580 approaching the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge, I-80 westbound, approaching Berkeley and Emeryville, and then Highway 4 westbound and 242 southbound, getting into Central County. And I'll go up a slide and you can see where things were at LOSF back in 2019, our last monitoring. So basically most of the places that are E today were F before, and then we lost a few locations off the radar, westbound 24 and southbound 680. Now, this is a snapshot in time from this spring. So you probably have noticed in the last couple months, some of this traffic has come back, though not really the southbound 680 south of 24. Definitely between 242 and 24 is pretty active these days. And some of the 24 westbound is coming back. But this is in spring 2021. We always collect in the spring. This is what it looked like in the AM. So I'll get on to PM. So PM, we did have some LOSF, probably in the places you'd expect. I-80 eastbound in the afternoon from about Richmond to Hercules, and then 242 northbound the entire route, and eastbound 4 basically from 680 out to Port Chicago Highway. And and there are those spots for you. And I'll do the same thing I did for AM, show you what it looked like in 2019. Same exact locations that are LOSF today were LOSF back then, but we lost a few locations. Part of 80, the furthest east segment of 24, approaching 680, and the northbound section of 680, all of the northbound section of 680. Like I mentioned for AM, I think that section north of 24 has come back, but the section south of 24, not as much, but I have noticed it lately. It does seem to be creeping back, maybe just not as far south into Danville, but I'm sure people have seen it coming back. So yeah. So here's kind of what, looking at countywide VMT since 2019, here's what it looks like. So basically that's along the bottom, that's December 1st. It's basically beginning of 2019, April of 2019. And then the 4-1 in the middle is April of 2020. And then the furthest right is end of July. So you can see that we kind of we're averaging over 30 million VMT per month in 2019. At one point, we were 35% below that last April, under 10 million. And now, or as of say July, we were back in the mid to high teens, sorry, 20s. We're probably back to about 85% of normal now, but that's when you really start hitting that critical mass where things really start choking up. Every car you add adds congestion, whereas maybe a few months ago it wasn't quite as bad, but we've added maybe 10% over the last couple of months, and that's really caused things to gum up, especially in the PM, but also in the AM. So now our intersection. So just kind of a summary for 2021. Things are, I guess I'd say, average. B's, C's, and D's is what we saw from our 65 intersections. Only one, I believe, one intersection in the PM was at LOSE. The rest, no LOSF is what I'm trying to say. And that's a lot different than last time. So here is what things look like in the AM. You can see from the legend, there isn't any LOSE in the AM. I've never had a legend look like that before. So I'm not going to point anything out because there's nothing really to point out. Everything is really average, as I said. I think there's people that would probably beg to differ on some of these locations, but really these are peak period measures, and they may be filling up for a half hour or an hour at a time, but they're not LOSF for 3 or 4 hours straight like they used to be. And here's PM peak period, where we have a couple, or we just have, let's see, the one LOSE, and I think that's at Treat in Oak Grove in the lovely city of Concord. They know that's a problem intersection. It's been LOSF for years, so having it at LOSE is probably good news for everybody, at least for the time being. I'm sure if we do this monitoring again in 2023, things will look different. But yeah, so that's what I have to report for intersection LOS. Wanted to remind you that we have all of the count sheets and synchro files or synchro sheets available in the appendices of this report. The count sheets include the bike and pedestrian counts. Here at I don't know if you can see my cursor, but here at the top is the vehicle counts. And then here are the pedestrian counts in kind of orange and the bicycle counts in green. And we have a history of those counts too, back to, I think, 2011. So feel free to use those. They're on our website, or you can contact me if you are looking for a particular intersection and don't want to go out and hire a traffic counter to get some, either 2019 data or 2021 data. And then for this effort, we're not super hyper focused on LOS right now, just because of the way things are going with LOS and the conditions out there right now. But we wanted to add some benefit to it. We are collecting this data. We might as well make it more readily available. So what we worked with our consultant on was to develop dashboards for the data. So you guys can just go to a website and be able to click through your intersections or look at different freeway locations. It's just the data that's in the CMP monitoring, but you can go look at it and be able to click through the different years or different time periods and see how these locations are performing. You're welcome to use the data however you want. We just wanted to put it out there for you. If you do have a need for it, it's readily available. But anyway, we have a web page for our CMP monitoring. We will have these 2 links there once we've finalized everything, but I'll see, I've already clicked on. Let's see, I probably have to. Can you see the web page? Or are you still seeing the PowerPoint? I'm going to do a new share. And
The website.
We can see the website, Matt.
Website, is that what you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, we see it.
so you see 7 a.m. Okay, so this is the freeway site. You can look at level of service. This is let's see, this is speeds, I believe, right here. So you can look at speeds. Sorry, we're dealing with my internet. You can look at level of service. Sorry, I'm not going to click through all these because I'm getting my computer's telling me I've got low resources. But anyway, you can click through all these different metrics. You can click through different time periods. You can, let's see, you can go to the intersection map and you can click through the different time periods. So looking at 2019 in the AM peak, you can, just kind of click around, see that, how your intersections were doing, what the delay was, what the auto volume is. So we just, and this gives a little historical tracker, how the LOS over time and volume over time. So it's, it wasn't that big of a lift for our consultant to do. They had all the data electronically, and we asked them to do this for us. If you can find uses for it, please use it. It's good data. It's free. We're going to make just make it available, and hopefully you can find something interesting to use it for. But that's really all I have for the CMP monitoring. Like I said, this may or may not be around in 2023. We may choose to focus all our monitoring on the action plan routes of regional significance. But that's something we'll have to, that's a discussion we'll have when we see where the CMP legislation is going and where our own relationship with the CMP is going. So that's all I have, and I can take questions.
Thank you, Matt. Are there any comments from the committee? No. Have you received any written public comment, Christina?
No, we have not.
If anyone would like to speak from the public, please raise your hand. And we see no hands raised. So again, due to the size of the technical coordinating committee, we will handle the motion and a roll call vote after the last regular agenda item has been presented. The next item on the agenda is an informational item presented by John to provide an update on the action plans and county-wide transportation plan.
Good afternoon, Chair Wells and committee members. My name is John Hong. I'm the Director of Planning for CCTA. This is my first time presenting to this committee, so I'm glad to see all of you. Again, as Chair Wells mentioned, this is an informational item. I have a few slides that I'm going to go through that talks about our process of updating the action plans and the CTP. And Matt, thank you for running the slides for me. If I can see it, go to the next slide, please, Matt, and then the regular view.
How's that? Are you seeing?
Thank you. Yeah, that's it. Perfect. So I'm going to start off with what CCTA's vision is, and I don't think you've all seen this unless you were at the TransPac Transplan joint meeting last week. But this is the vision that came from our executive director, Tim Hill, and this is a starting point, and it certainly can be tweaked and updated. But essentially, we've identified 4 items First of all, we're looking at a seamless integrated transportation system, leveraging technology and using performance-based analysis, basically looking at data and using data to process, identify strategies and investment. The second one is looking at emphasizing personalized mobility, and that's including creating transportation network that enables the individuals to get from point A to point B and providing travel options that are easy, efficient, and cost effective. Third one is sustainability, looking at alternative fuels and other options. And now lastly is the safety aspect of this and focusing on Vision Zero, doing what is necessary to eliminate the number of fatalities on our roadway. Next slide, please. So the goals, these might be familiar to you because these are taken right off of the last transportation expenditure plan from a couple of years ago. We feel that these goals are still applicable, and we build a CTP upon these goals and the visions stated at the last slide. Again, these goals are to relieve congestion on highways and interchange, make transit cleaner and more reliable, and providing access and safe transportation for everyone in the county, and also improve transportation in our communities. Next slide, please. We start off with the vision and goals, and first of all, we're going to be reaching out to the RTPCs. We have 4 RTPCs, as you know, and we have 5 action plans that we're going to be updating. The CTP, along with action plan, are going to be focusing on the horizon year of 2050. And this is my first time personally going through this update of the action plans and CTP. I think a lot of you on this committee have gone through this multiple times. So we want to make this a little bit more integrated and more collaborative between the action plans and the CTP. So that's why we're not doing this sequentially, but almost side by side. As mentioned in the slide there, the action plans are going to be a building block for the CTP. For the action plans, we're focusing on some new concepts. In addition to the infrastructure that you're all familiar with, we're including analysis of the vehicle miles travel, multimodal transportation, equity, and safety. Next slide, please. As you know, the action plans are a requirement of the Measures J Growth Management Program, GMP. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll be reaching out to the RTPCs, and we'll be looking at the regional transportation system and its relationship to land use decision. And the process actually started already. We've reached out to some of the RTPCs already, and I envision the next year and 8 months is going to be really intense, and we're going to have a lot of meetings for this action plan CTP update. Next slide, please. We are transitioning from MTSO, the multi-transportation system, to the RTOs, which is called Regional Transportation Objectives. And I think I mentioned this in the previous slide. So roadway transit, bike ped network, climate change, safety, and equity. Next slide. As far as the CTP update, this is a long-range planning document, as you all know, and it looks at transportation and land use in Contra Costa County. It establishes goals, strategies, and projects to achieve the vision that was stated earlier. For this CTP, We want to be more innovative, incorporating a lot of new elements into the CTP. And again, we were looking forward to a lot of the inputs from the RTPC's outreach effort. Next slide. Again, I want to stress the relationship between the action plan and CTP. We want to integrate the two process as much as we can. And then it's going to require overlapping the two activities that I mentioned earlier. Next slide. Not only do we look at the inputs from the RTPCs, but also looking at other regional efforts that's been undertaken, and also incorporating plans and other studies that's been done over the past 3-4 years since the last CTP update. We're looking at updating the travel demand model and housing elements. Next slide. Some of the broad themes and outcomes that we're considering includes elements that will re-envision transportation in the county. Our executive director and our whole team here is really looking forward to incorporating new ideas, new innovative ideas and technology, and use data in an efficient way to help us identify and prioritize projects. We're looking at a corridor-based approach, so not only looking at the main line, the highways and the freeways, we're looking at the areas that are adjacent, the arterials, intersections that are adjacent to the main line. And we want to increase our community engagement and outreach efforts. So what we've done in the past, we're going to do more of it. We want to make sure that the community is on board with what we're doing, and also the cities and all interested parties. Next slide. These aren't anything new that you've seen. It's nice to show all the elements here. Shouldn't be any surprises. Again, we want to relieve traffic congestion, be accountable, be transparent, emphasizing technology and innovation, and also looking at a performance-based approach, and including all the technologies out there, including autonomous vehicles. And this is my last slide. I mentioned, so we're looking at finishing this whole process by June of 2023. And this kind of outlines that the first step is working with the RTPCs, and then doing incorporating public outreach in there in the process, and then updating the CTP. With that, I conclude my presentation. I'll be happy to address any questions we have.
Thank you, John. Are there any comments from the committee?
John, are you looking for comments or just questions at this time?
Or just questions, comments, yeah, whatever you have, you know, it would be great.
Because I do have kind of a high level comment, and you know, this is what, now for what it's worth. You know, when I look at the objectives, I mean, the very first one is reducing congestion, which is, well, for one thing, it's a little bit of a fool's errand, because obviously, you know, if you build it, they will come. I mean, there's induced demand anytime you build a road. But I'm concerned that you know, notably the first objective, that kind of contradicts much of the other objectives in terms of, you know, just getting people out of their cars. I've also noticed, you know, there's obviously a heavy emphasis on technology, and I've noticed that CCTA seems to focus that technology and, you know, and funding pretty heavily on essentially automobile technology, whether it be autonomous or otherwise. And so I'm just, I mean, obviously, if the CCTA board disagrees with this, you know, they're the ones in power. But I do just kind of want to throw up a note of caution there that it kind of seems like a little bit more of the same. And I just don't, I mean, at this point, I just don't see why we should be investing in capacity and technology for, our freeways, for example. That's kind of like funding a dinosaur. So just to get that out there.
No, thanks for the comment. I know actually that's the type of input that I'm looking for. And then again, this is just because it's stated there on my slide doesn't mean that it stays there. But again, this is what you mentioned is from the last TEP. And I completely understand where you're going, Andy. And I think we all have the same thing. We're not looking for capacity increasing. Relieving traffic congestion is basically getting people out of the vehicles. So there's other ways we can do that. I think the days of building freeways are kind of dwindling down, and there's really not much we can do with building freeways. So we have to look at operational improvements, and other. I mean, I think bike ped transit.
Yeah,
looking at that more so than addressing freeways and highways. The technology that we're focusing on the vehicles is just one aspect of mobilizing folks, but that's not sure. Definitely not the only one that we're focusing on. But I really appreciate the comment, Andy.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Looks like no. If anyone would like to speak from the public, please raise your hand. No hands raised. So the next item on the agenda is an informational item presented also by John to provide an update on the 2021 Priority Development Area Investment and Growth Strategy.
Thank you, Chair Wells. So for this item, I'm going to have the expert present this. So I've invited our consultant, Greg Goodfellow, and he will be presenting this item. And if you're with the cities and if Greg hasn't reached out to you yet, he will be. So he's a bulldog. He want to get the information. He's looking for information, and you better give it to him. No, I'm just kidding. So Greg, with that, I'm going to hand this off to you, Greg.
Okay.
And Matt, you can run the slides, please. Thank you.
I'll wait for my slide to come up. This is interesting. Committee Member Smith, I think this is a part of that direction you're alluding to of reducing VMP and some of the work that CCTA will be doing, in working with other regional agencies. And I certainly agree with your comment. And I think this will be this is a new perspective on that. So this fits in with that comment.
Matt, you got it?
Sorry, I didn't realize it was in the same PowerPoint.
Yeah, the same one, sorry. Yeah, the next one.
And swap.
Okay, thanks, Matt. You can probably go right into that first slide after the title. All right, thank you. Commissioner Wells and committee members, thanks, John. Thanks, Matt. I am here to introduce the 2021 PDA Investment and Growth Strategy Update, which I'm working on with John and Matt. I think the most succinct summary of what this document will shape OBAG 3 by identifying the challenges, opportunities, and needs unique to the county's PDAs. Of course, this is an update to a previous document. Next slide. Like I said, this is a 4-year requirement for OBAG. The last update to this document occurred in May of 2017. The idea is to coordinate among CCTA and then all of the jurisdictions in the county that overlap PDAs. I believe that's 18 or 19 local jurisdiction. And what we're going to do is align transportation investment with countywide planning and shape OBAG 3 allocations by identifying local projects that are likely to reduce VMT in the PDAs. And before you move on to the next slide, a little bit more detail. MTC provided CCTA and the other CMPs with a rash of data, the first one being all of the housing permits at each income level issued in each of the PDAs. So we have a lot of data about housing units or housing permits issued on very low, moderate, and above moderate income levels. And they also distributed the percent VMT change among all the PDAs since the last update. So we have a great input and perspective into changing VMT in those PDAs. So I want you to think about those first two bits of data. And the next step in this is to better understand planned transportation projects within the PDAs. So next slide, Matt. Okay, so this is the step that PlaceWorks is working on now with the local agencies. So planned transportation investments are what we want to understand. First of all, they have to be VMT reducing projects. Those are all eligible. They need to be in adopted plans and CIPs, so reviewing all of those. And then PlaceWorks, after doing that, we're reaching out to local agencies and transportation agencies to find out directly from them, what are those projects that you've really targeted? What are you prioritizing out of the projects that are within that larger group of VMT reducing projects in all of your documents? So what I've done over the last month or so is in each of those agencies looked at all of their planning documents, all of their CIPs, specific plans, bike and ped master plans, and really isolated all of the planned projects that would or could reduce VMT. And then I'm going out to each of those agency staff members and saying, all right, I've done this comprehensive review of all of your potentially VMT reducing projects. Can you give me some key insight on up to 5, say, of those projects that you really want to see implemented, and why? Is it about financial feasibility? Is it about community need? And second of all, are there any projects outside of those documents that you're prioritizing? Could this be the result of COVID? Are they safety projects? And then if you think about those first two metrics of housing and mobility, now we're going to take these 3 data sets, housing permits issued, VMT change, and prioritize transportation projects, and map them and find this intersection within PDAs of where these things all intersect, where we know low-income housing is going to be, where we know these priority transportation investments will be, and where we know VMT still needs to change, where it's still not decreasing enough. And with that big intersection analysis, we'll be able to highlight transportation investments that need to occur. Next slide. Very quickly, we need to get this to MTC on December 15th. Obviously, I'm working closely with CCTA staff. Again, we're going to review agency plans and CIPs. I've finished that now. It's just a little bit, this presentation was put together a few weeks ago. Outreach to local and jurisdictional staff. I've already had conversations with BART, local agencies. As John joked, he's been CC'd on my many emails to staff as we get this moving with that request list of prioritized projects. And then we're going to develop that map and that large matrix of projects, housing, and VMT. And then we'll draft that PDA strategy update. And not in this presentation, I will explain that in 2017 and 2015, in those previous PDA growth investment strategy updates, there's a list of 8 action items, very straightforward and necessary. For example, implement the OBAG grant program, integrate PDA support with the CTP, monitor PDAs to understand infrastructure needs and market conditions, support local planning efforts. And each update that CCTA creates is an update to those action items. How far have we gotten? Where are we with those action items? We will certainly do that. But again, this update is going to be a little different because we have this great rash of information for MTC, and we're doing this more intense outreach process to find out about these key transportation investments and planning options. And again, looking at that intersection, creating these geographical matrices to really find out what needs to be done and what are the best ways, again, what this comes down to implement OBAG 3 and isolate OBAG 3 funded projects. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but that's really where this is going. I'm happy to answer some questions, comments.
Thank you, John and Greg. Are there any comments from the committee? Have we
I was-
received, oh, go ahead.
As I was also going to give an example of a city I'm working with, just to show you sort of my process. For example, in Antioch, I've kind of started at the most widest level of planning documents. For example, looking at WADA and their planning, their priority planning. There could be a ferry in Antioch at some point, looking at possible funding, looking at what it would cost, looking at how prioritized it is from WADA. Going down a little further, looking at Antioch's downtown specific plan, what projects are planned there that would reduce VMP. There are many. Obviously filling in bike lane gaps, allowing credits for on-street parking, and then getting more to the granular level, looking at their new CIP. And there are pedestrian and ADA improvements, sidewalk repair programs that would create better bike lanes, Amtrak station improvements. So again, it's looking at the grandest level down to the most granular to really isolate those transportation investments that really could intersect housing and reduce VMT. That's all.
Are there any comments from the committee?
Ricky, this is Leah Woodtack. Maybe this is like a reaction of being a sore loser and not getting OBAG funding when we've applied for it. But I'm wondering if some of this analysis is also going to look to see, how successful our county has been getting OBAG funds relative to, more urban jurisdictions like San Francisco, San Jose, and Oakland. And, is there something that we should be doing in this process that will help us become more competitive? Because it seems like, that those are often our stiff competition.
Yeah, you know what? When looking at the 8 action items, implement OBAG grant program. I mean, that's one where we could look into that. I mean, if that's the first action item in this thing is implement OBAG. And in essence, that's what you're saying. In order to implement it, we need to get the funding. And I think that you make a perfect point about taking a deeper dive into actually getting those funds. Support local planning efforts, refine CCTA planning tools and models, align Measure J funding with OBAG, work with ABAG and MTC to ensure their policies support Contra Costa County PDAs, and advocate for state funding. I think that 7th action item, working with MTC to ensure their policies support Contra Costa County. I mean, are they really focused on more suburban, less urban areas? I think you make a great point, Leah, that we can look further into this and sort of maybe take a little bit of a historical overview onto where OBAG grants have gone.
Well, and what can we do to increase our competitiveness in the future?
Well, I think the value of this round is that there is this focus on where our housing starts. And I mean, I literally have a spreadsheet from MTC that has all of the counties with all of the housing starts and all of the PDAs. Now, it is not the goal of this update to compare, but at the same time, now that we are looking at this intersection of VMT change and housing starts, it could be that in Contra Costa County, we are at an advantageous position because of housing starts and because that we may find that there's been less of a VMT decrease in areas where we now know there's housing, or housing starts, I should say, and where transportation investment is planned. And those are the 3 things that we need to see intersect. Wait, VMT has not gone down enough here. Wait, there is affordable housing going there, and there is this potential planned investment, transportation investment. Wham, there's that intersection, and there is there is that increase for potential funding. So I do think it is based on that set of existing conditions, that we can't control at this point. But I do think in Contra Costa County, we may find that those existing conditions are more prevalent than in urban areas. They may not be, but I do think with this round of the update, there is that new set of existing conditions that will change. Matt?
Yeah, Greg, I just want to point out for Leah that really the PDA program guidelines have been adopted by MTC. So that's where the counties get to fight over how the funding is doled out. So I think, for the most part, we've advocated for the most level of local control over our share of the funds. So I think it's going to be up to us to put together a Contra Costa OBAG program that meets the needs of Contra Costa and awards, the projects that we think are important. But you're right. There is always that at the regional level, that kind of tug of war over where the funding is going. And unfortunately, Oakland, the entire city of Oakland is basically a PDA. So they kind of technically qualify for more easily qualify for funding than our small PDAs dispersed all over the place. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't get our share of funding.
And that's also the value of the outreach process that we're doing right now. Then we can hear from local staff those 3 to 5 projects where they think the funding's ready, the community needs them. These are the ones that are going to have the most impact, as opposed to just going through the existing documents, getting a massive list. Now, the value, of course, like I said, is hearing straight from the local staff why this is so important and why it will be.
Do we have any other comments or questions from the committee? See none. Have we received any written public comments?
No, we have not.
Okay, well, thank you, John and Greg again. So let's see. Now for a motion. Oh, if anyone would like to speak from the public, please raise your hand. See no hands raised. Now for a motion and roll call vote to approve the following items. Item 3A, approval of the summary of actions from July 15, 2021. Item 4B, acceptance of the draft 2021 CMP traffic monitoring report for circulation and review. Do I have a motion and a second?
– This is Leah. I'll move so I cover
Yes.
everything this time.
Okay, and a second by...
Yeah, I'll amend my second.
And a second by Andy Smith. Christina, please conduct a roll call vote.
Member Ballinger,
Aye.
Member Bobadilla,
Aye.
Member Chen,
Aye.
Member Conradi,
Aye.
Member Diaz,
Aye.
Member Greenblatt,
Aye.
Member Cursivan,
Yes.
Member Mercurio,
Aye.
Member Reeves,
Aye.
Member Rawani,
Aye.
Member Smith,
Aye.
Vice Chair Stamps,
Yes. Aye.
and Chair Wells.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Okay, do we have any other business? And nope. And I guess that concludes our meeting, and this meeting is adjourned at 3:32 p.m. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a nice
Thank you.
day.